I believe.
Have we landed?
I think we've landed. Oh, thank you for
One
joining.
small step for a man or person.
One giant leap for mankind.
Giant leap for mankind. We're here. Awesome.
Yes, I believe we're all working. We can trust in technology. Okay, everybody. Hey,
Have we landed?
I think we've landed. Oh,
We've landed.
for a man.
All right.
Giant leap for mankind.
Giant leap for mankind. We're here. Awesome.
Working. We can trust in technology. One moment. Okay, everybody. Hey, have we landed? What's that?
We've landed.
For a man.
All right.
This is kind of a repetition I'm hearing here. Give us a moment.
Yeah, I thought it was a bit like time travel.
So
This is really funny. Yeah, I thought it was a bit like time travel.
I'm still hearing it.
Yeah, it's like a rockabilly record, but like with the longest slapback you can imagine.
So this is kind of like, it's like a looping. This is sort of like experimental music here, I'm hearing.
This is music concrete. This is what Henry was trying to do.
Let me see. I'm seeing if I'm asking a friend if it sounds okay now. I'm still hearing the playback. Can I just do it straight audio? How do you do this, man? How is that, Warren? You hear me?
I can hear you, yeah.
Okay, good.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm going to just make sure it sounds okay. Giving a second. Someone says it seems like it's starting to roll through. Let me just make sure. How is that? Can you hear me?
I can hear you, yeah.
I'm still hearing this playback.
I'm hearing the playback too.
Just make sure it sounds okay.
I thought they perfected Zoom during the whole COVID lockdown.
This is so odd. I'm still hearing this playback.
I'm hearing the playback too.
It's kind of amazing to hear our voices back and forth like 50 times. Let me see.
I thought they perfected Zoom during the whole
I feel like they had 2 years of perfecting the technology.
Clearly, they've pulled all the funding out of Zoom.
We should stop it, sir. It's kind of amazing to hear the voices. You know what, Warren? I think the best thing to do now is I'm going to log off. Let's log back on and just.
You want me to do the same?
So I'm gonna stop the meeting and then start it back up again.
So do I log out?
Let's cut it and go right.
Hello.
Hey, brother.
Hello. How are you?
I'm good. I think the hiccup is good.
Okay.
Can you hear me fine?
Yes, I can now.
Okay. I'm just making
All
sure.
right. It's nice to know that we can still have problems this day and age.
No, it was. I think it was. I'm technologically dysfunctional. I think it had probably something to do with me.
Well, I don't know about that. I just think that it's the problem with this stuff is it's good when it works, and then when it's not, you can't just lift up the bonnet and kind of have jiggle a spark plug or something like you used to be able to do. It's just
absolutely, man. But I'm gonna start it, from the top once more, and act like that didn't happen, and go into the little precursor, which is hello everyone. My name
Hey
is
everyone.
I'm artistic director here at Pioneer Works.
Warren Ellis. I'm a musician, and I'm not the author Warren Ellis who does comics. I'm the guy that plays a violin and does plays with the Bad Seeds and Grinder Man and Dirty Three. And I've written a book called Nina Simone's Gum, and we're here to celebrate its launch in the United States of America.
That sounds much better when you do that bio, Warren. And yeah, that's I feel like we should talk to Google about putting your name before the other author. I think that would solve some confusion.
We've cleared it up now.
So, I want to let everybody know as well is that you can, throughout the conversation, you can post questions right in our on our website. So you can post some questions live. We'll take a few moments at the end to go through.
Is that on Twitter or something, or?
Yeah, well, on our website directly as you're watching, there's a little space there you can ask questions, but also you can send them directly in Twitter. And I'm going to be sending questions at the end, so please feel free. And
please ask questions. Like if there's anyone there who wants to ask anything, please ask them, because it actually helps.
Yeah, it's always nice to hear from the people.
Yes.
And I think that I want to kind of just go over also where are you at? I know you're in pretty cool looking place in the back.
I'm in Noah's Ark. This is the ark I've built for all the animals with special needs in Sumatra, all the little broken animals that we are filling this ark, and we're going to let them die happily at Ellis Park, which is a thing that we started up this year. Actually, I'm in a hotel in Antwerp, and I'm at the end of a long miraculous tour of the United Kingdom and Europe with Nick Cave. We've been out doing Carnage and Ghostine with some backing singers and another guy playing some drums and bass and things like that. And we've managed to get around an 8-week tour, I think, of the UK and Europe without catching COVID. So it's a slight miracle in these times. But it's been amazing. Been absolutely amazing.
Yeah, that's so many tours are canceled and shows are canceled. It's pretty incredible.
Yeah, it's been incredible, the kind of efforts that our crew have gone to ensure that they do the right thing. It's really moving, everybody's wearing masks and loading in and out. We have a lot of stuff and everybody's done the right thing. We're testing every day and stuff like that. So, I'd just like to thank them for their efforts. And we see a lot of tours being cancelled at the moment because people catch COVID. We're all vaccinated, but it doesn't mean that we can't catch it. So it's been kind of amazing to get, these are the last 2 dates of the tour. So it's been a very special moment for us.
And so you're playing tomorrow night as well?
Playing tomorrow and the next night, yeah.
And what time is it over there? It's late night.
It's 1 a.m. It's okay. It's my preferred hour. This is when I get animated. Yeah, this is when I'm like kind of ask anyone. This is like when I'm good.
This is when you shine.
Yeah, this is peak time.
I think I want to just set a little bit of a tone. I think a lot of people probably listening they've heard the title, which is it's a very literal title. But just to kind of set off a little bit, I wanted you maybe to talk just about the initial story of that moment of just having this experience where you see this gum, and then I want you to do a small reading that we spoke about from page 68. So just maybe want you to roll into that.
Okay. Let's set the tone.
Yeah.
Do you want me to set it, or are you going to set it?
No, I think you should set it. I think they want to hear from you.
the kind of the basis of the book, Nina Simone's Gum, is about it's about a piece of chewing gum that I acquired from Nina Simone's piano in 1999. I saw this concert, and I left Australia in 1995 with my band Dirty Three, and toured non-stop. And in 1999, Nick Cave curated this festival called Meltdown in London. And he asked Nina Simone to come and play. And there was a lot of doubt as to whether she could actually do it, because at that stage she was physically very diminished. And I think, she was having issues as well, lots of issues. And when she arrived on stage for the concert, it was clear that she was struggling physically to even walk out onto stage. And I was there with, one of my best mates and a couple of thousand of people. And she came out, and at this age, I'd only ever seen a couple of videos of her, because it was before YouTube and anything like that. So all this stuff you gleaned, it was your imagination, and it was the recordings and anything that you may have seen, in Australia on the TV or something like that. I'd never seen her live or anything. And she sort of arrived on stage, and she was chewing this piece of gum, and she went over to the piano and sort of stuck it on the piano, and then proceeded to sort of start singing. And during the first song, you could feel this sort of communal gasp, because she was really struggling to hit notes, and you could see her railing. And after the first song, she just sort of got up from the piano and walked to the front of the stage and just put her fist in the air like that, and then went and sat back down and just proceeded to play this concert that was transcendental. It was this kind of this change that took over her. It was religious, and you could see her just summoning up this person that has defined her all her life. And it went on to be this concert that everybody I knew that was there changed their life. She by the end of the concert, she was out the front dancing and blowing kisses to the audience, and it was over in about 50 minutes or an hour, I think, and then she was gone. And I hoisted myself up on stage. I went to check her piano and noticed that the gum had been just placed on her towel that she used to wipe her head. And I took the gum, I folded the towel over the gum, and my best friend Mick, who was there with me, I went and saw him and I said, check out what I've got. And he gave me this Tower Records bag that he had some records in. And I stuck it in there, and it became this kind of, spiritual totem for me for the next 20 years that I kept. I built my studio around it. My first studio that I ever had, a first workplace. I built shrines to it. I surrounded it with things that meant something to me, and not really knowing what I was doing, really, but it was just this personal thing that I had, and it was actually was around the gum that you couldn't see that was important. The fact that Nina Simone had touched this and had been in her mouth, and the whole concert was in that bit of gum for me. And 20 years later, Nick Cave was putting together an exhibition of his life in Denmark at the Royal Danish Library. And he asked if there was anything that I wanted to put in the exhibition. And I said, well, I have Nina Simone's chewing gum. And we discussed this in a documentary called 20,000 Days on Earth in 2013. And in all truthfulness, I hardly even looked at the gum, because I didn't want to know that it had disappeared. I didn't want to know that it was gone. I must have looked at it 10 times, I guess, over those 20 years. And I looked and I found that it was there. And then I said, Nick, I've got the gum. Would you like it? And he said, yeah, it's absolutely what this is about, this exhibition. And so then I decided to get it cast and copied in case it got lost. I'd never been out of my possession. But as soon as it was an idea that was launched into the world from that documentary, it started becoming something else. And this, I saw this idea come to life with it, and I got it cast, and eventually I found a woman in London who a friend had recommended, who took so much care. And I noticed that anybody that was drawn into the sort of the story of this gum, they approached it with so much love and care. And it was a thing that I've seen happen all my creative life, and never been able to put my finger on it or the words on it, which was that love and care was needed for ideas to take flight. And Hannah Uprichard, the jeweler who ended up making 20 casts for me in silver and gold of it, she would send me photos because she knew how nervous I was about it and what it meant to me, and she got it. And for me, the whole thing about the gum was, it was a metaphor for the creative process and for ideas, and also the sort of the collaborative aspect of the creative process. So I kept getting these photos and amazing emails from people and texts, and as people came on board with it, they carried the idea as well. So that was that was the premise of the book.
Right. And that was there's this piece of the book where you start and you go through this text exchange where Nick asks you if you have anything for this exhibition. And I think you mentioned two objects. One was your violin, and the other was
I had my there was this, it was this sort of the serendipity of the moment, actually, because at the same time that Nick asked me about any objects that I had, that I'd like put in his exhibition, a violin of mine turned up that was my first violin that I ever had as a kid, and played for 20 years. And in 1996, it got sat on by a bus driver and sort of destroyed, and it was photographed. And then I just thought it was firewood, and I'd forgotten about it. And around the same time as this, I was sort of getting the gum, to offer for the exhibition. I wrote to Bled and Butcher, who's been a friend for years and a great photographer. I wrote to him, and he said, I was actually looking for photos of Nina Simone that night, because I knew he'd taken a photo of Nick and Nina Simone together. And I said, you don't happen to have any photos of my violin? And he said, actually, I'm pretty sure I have your violin. So he ended up going to his basement, and he found the violin, and it had been sitting there for 20 years. And he sent me some pictures of it, and it was actually really moving for me to see it, because I just thought it was gone forever. And I sort of, the narrative of the violin sort of fits in the book as well, because it was this thing of people taking care of things, I guess, on your behalf, that I found really moving about that.
And you became, so the time period is kind of 1999 is when it was the performance at the festival of Nina Simone. And so you had the gum until it was actually shown for 20 years. You were kind of its keeper, so to speak.
Yeah.
And
and I became aware that I was its keeper. Like I said, it was just something that I had, but and I know we all have these things. Like I think a lot of people do. They trigger memories. You can have something, I don't know, there's something that just, it might be a tobacco tin that the smell reminds you of something, or I think the more I spoke to people about, when I was sort of looking at writing the book, I would talk to people and they would find their own story in it. They had things, whether it was an old packet of cigarettes that their boyfriend had smoked the night he died, and they'd kept it for 10 years in any handbag that they carried around. A pair of slippers, or like something that had been given to them by somebody that meant something to them. And these little things that our memory is what defines us. And these little triggers, these little markers that remind us of where we were, like the way a song does, like you listen to a song that, I don't know, if I listen to a Bowie song, that sort of changed my life, or John Coltrane, or I listen to Ellis Coltrane, they remind me of who I was. And I still recognize that person now, 40 years later. I recognize that. And these little objects help us help me find my place in the world and connect with a person that I recognize. It's a person that I don't see in the mirror when I look, and the person is aging in the mirror. It's this person that I feel like I've always been. There's something about them that they're like a narrative or something, they're a signpost. But this gum, like I would pull out the copy, like, I have.
Yeah.
I wear a copy around my neck, which is here, and there it is, and I would pull it out, and someone would, when they'd find out what it was, they would visibly well up in tears. And when I pitched the book to Faber, I was there with Dan and Alexa and Jack and Rachel. Rachel Willis came along, and when I showed the copies, Alexa welled up in tears and just said, like, "Oh, I can't believe this," And I noticed that this thing was different to anything else that I had. When I sent the photo to Anne de Moulamista, who is a fashion designer, she just texted back and said, "This is like a hair of Christ," and it's a holy relic. And she's like, maybe all your creativity came from there. And I love the imagination that this thing engaged in people, because what I'm talking about, the thing around it, is nothing, but people bring their imagination to it. And the fact that this little, banal object has been carried by so many people with so much love and care, I found incredibly moving. And also, it spoke to me of the creative process. It spoke to me of collaboration. It spoke to me of so many things that I've seen throughout my life working in the studio. Mm-hmm. But also the fact that it spoke of Nina Simone and what she meant to people. Mm-hmm. And I felt it was my responsibility to let it go into the world. Like when I make a record, there's a period where it just sits there and nobody's heard it except for people within the project. And then, once it's released, it's not yours anymore. And again, the gum was like, let it into the world, and it obtained a bigger life. There's so many things that have happened since I've written the book with the gum, like where it may eventually end up. I talk about building a sculpture. We've done that, next year, I want to build a big stone version of it and get on a boat and go to Sumatra, where Ellis Park is. And once it's opened, I want to put a big stone replica of the gum in the park. A guy wants, Justin Kurtzel, who's the director, he wants to come and direct the kind of launch of this, gum in the park and all this stuff.
You put there's a list. You have like a list of countries, and I saw one of them is like Antarctica. I remember on the list.
Yeah, I love the idea of just putting them in places. I need somebody that will jump onto that and help. To kind of do that. But we're in discussions about places that it may go, and it's the thing that I found in my book too, when I was writing it, these moments when you throw something out there, they need other people to enable it to happen. And this is a beautiful thing about collaboration in the creative process. And, I found that if you put an idea out there, it's the kind of the wise thing to do. If you don't say something about it, then you never know what might happen. The worst thing that can happen when you say it is that it doesn't work. But there's every chance that it will. And I think that's something that I learned, is to just open my mouth and let the idea be heard, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, there's an incident I talk about in the book, you know, which is a really little thing, where I see some false teeth of mine rattling around in a briefcase. And I have this idea that we can make a score for a Pinocchio stop motion film with Guillermo del Toro. And I heard the idea in my head and I said it, and it just started a discussion about, well, we could use prosthetic limbs, we could do this. Now, the film didn't happen, but the idea was launched. And that was a big moment for me, to hear those things out there, and to see people engage in them.
Right. I think you see that throughout the book. It's not that it's not like you decided, I'm going to write a book about this. It happened to be a bunch of little coincidences, things that ran into each other, where, you know, they really pushed you into doing it. And it's almost like it needed to happen rather than an idea.
I initially saw the book as being photographic. Like I had about 500 images, and I thought in my discussion with Faber that it would be a book largely photographs. And I told Nick about it, and he said, can I write an introduction for you? And I said, I'd love that, you know. So he wrote the introduction really quickly, and I thought, okay, well, I don't have to write many words now, you know. I figured, like, you know, I had to write 20,000 words, and I thought that was about 10 pages in my head.
Right.
And it's not, for anyone out there who is like me, not very good at maths and numbers.
Right.
It's way more than 10 pages. But I thought I would just write a little guide about what happened, and then this, and the pictures were the kind of the thing for me. But then when I sat down, I saw there was a sort of bigger story. It was in discussion with Oren Moverman, who's a dear friend of mine, who is a director who lives in New York, New York City. And he, during the COVID lockdown, a friend of ours, Hal Wilner, had died from COVID, and we reconnected, and because he was a dear mutual friend of ours, and we reconnected, and I told him what I was doing. You know, I was trying to write a book, and he was like, well, let me interview you. Let's transcribe it, you know, and then you can see what you've got. And he asked me a lot of questions that I kept saying, this isn't important to the book. And he said, you think they aren't important, but they are. And he's like, you think this is about the gum, but it's not. It's about why you cared enough to take that. Why did you do it? And eventually I realized that he was right, that I had to kind of look at it, a bigger picture of it, a bigger picture beyond that, you know, that like why I cared about music and the creative process. I think I saw that there was a bigger story going on, that made me think about moments in my life where people had encouraged me to do things, teachers, friends, people, when I'm working with people in the studio, affirmation, how important that was in the process. And writing it during 2020, when it just seemed like, you know, everything was just melting, and the you know, there was chaos. If no one knew what was going on, and politics and Trump, you know, all that stuff, it was just a rage machine, you know. And I decided, you know, I was at the same time I was working on a record with Marianne Faithfull of romantic poetry. She was in hospital in a coma. They said she wasn't going to make it. There was all this stuff going on, and I realized that I needed to write something about the good of it all. Like I wanted the book to be about wonder, about awe, and so I think that was also important for me. Like I didn't want to write a memoir. Like it feels there's fragments of me in there. But
I feel like it ends up being a memoir, but also a memoir of you being kind of an admirer of all these people. I mean, obviously, you know, Nina Simone is the saint, and she, like, there's something about that, but all of the people, the deep admiration you have for all the people around in your process throughout the years is really like, that's how I feel like we see a lot about your life through the stories of different people. You know, I mean, even starts with your father. but there's so many,
yeah,
so much of that.
yeah. Sorry?
No, there's a lot of that, just beautiful admiration of like the idea of these people that you have admired, looked up to, these sort of this whole concept too of, you know, was thinking about, it's a lot about relics, and you speak about relics, and you know, relic is an object is like esteemed and venerated in an association with like a saint or a martyr. And the idea that you have really, Nina to you is a saint. You know, it's Nina becomes this sort of almost, you know, I think about this a lot because I grew up with a lot of spirituality, but I didn't go to church. I didn't go to these things. And when I go to a show, a concert, and I see a performer, it's almost that admiration it has a religious or liturgic process. And it's like, you see that through your love of all these people, but Nina Simone, you know, becomes this thing where I remember Nick in Nick's forward, I think he ends it on this idea that I have it somewhere. Yeah, he ends, so the last paragraph of the forward, he says, the show ended in mutual rapture, and Nina Simone left the stage a different person, restored, awakened, and transfigured. And we too were changed and would never be the same, not ever. As I turned to leave, Warren was crawling up onto the stage looking possessed and headed for the Steinway. Like, I think about that moment of, it was a mistake.
Yeah, I guess
something
an
about
aspect
you.
of a kind of, retrieving something, you know, of a pilgrimage or something. But,
Yeah.
you know, I mean, concerts are like that. There can be these communal epiphanies. I've you know, that's one concert. I've seen several concerts. I saw Ellis Coltrane, concerts that changed my life, like records that changed music. And you know, if you talk about spirituality, you know, I went to church from a young age. My parents went. But you know, and I was told there was a God, but I realized writing this book that music has been this spiritual quest for me. Like when I heard John Coltrane, I believed it was the voice of God.
Mm-hmm.
I was 17. I didn't know anything about him, but I thought God was speaking to me through this music, and I just sort of dived into that world. And I realized that music has this incredible power, because most of us, myself included, we can't articulate what it is about it. It speaks to us on an emotional level. Not many people can say what it is about it they like, but it moves them in a way deeply, you know, like, and it's direct. It doesn't need to be in the English language or whatever language, you know, it can just move us in ways that we don't know why. And I realized for me, my whole life, and you know, I think it started with my dad sitting around playing his songs on the guitar and picking up a poetry book and just like playing and singing using the poems. I was witnessing the creative act happening at a really young age. And I was watching magic, you know, I didn't know what it was. I just thought that's what people did. But he invited me into this world. He'd written songs, and they sat in the cupboard up high, because he sort of gave it all away when he had a family. And you know, in many ways, I think that was my first view on the creative world. And I start the book with a shared experience that I had with my younger brother when I was about 6, witnessing this phenomenon, this supernatural phenomenon in the back garden. And when I told Oren about this, he's like, man, that was like your first experience with the supernatural. Like, it's probably defined who you are. Like the fact you didn't walk away from it, the fact that you believe it. I've never questioned it, what I saw. And, you know, and I write about it in the book, because I realized that the kid that saw that thing happen there's an aspect of that person that's still there now. When I got to the end of the book, I realized this sense of wonder and awe about things has been kind of encouraged in me all my life, and that there's an aspect of me that has never changed. I've modified certain things, and I hope to continue modifying things, you know, until I'm no longer here. And, you know, I don't always get it right, but there's an aspect of me that I recognize, when I look back at these things, and I've had these experiences with the ghost of Beethoven visiting me at periods in my life. I've had this, and it was like the concert, the atmosphere would change. There was, not just the atmosphere, but the light, everything changed, and when I started looking at these incidents, I could see that there was a narrative to these phenomenons in my life.
Do you feel that, because it's funny for me because
and really how we look at things is mean to us,
yeah.
I always love that section in Equus by Peter Schaefer. There's a play, and it's about do you know that play?
Yeah.
So the sort of scene where the psychiatrist is sitting there, and he's got this kid who's done this heinous act of blinding these horses, and there's this great speech that I'm going to get wrong, but it's in a nutshell, the psychiatrist goes like, I sit and look at my books on ancient gods, and I go to Greece, every 3 years. I look at these books every night, and I believe in this stuff. And I'm married, and I haven't kissed my wife for 30 years, and da 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 da. And then he goes, but here's this kid, like every night riding naked in a field on a horse, his sweat mixed with the horse's sweat, communing with his God. And he goes, you tell me who's insane. And I always loved that, that, you can create these gods, you can create things, and you believe them, and it's real. And that's the imagination too, that's an extraordinary thing.
I think that's a beautiful, the idea that you create these gods that are these people that are performing, and you kind of idolize these people, but you really, in my mind, you became, a sort of god on the other side of you. You are a teacher and you're an admirer at the same time. And I've seen you on stage, and I've been lost in those moments of, ecstatic kind of reverie, just watching you as a performer. I feel like you're not in the book. You don't really talk about that as far as how you feel being on the stage.
That's not for me to comment on. I mean, I know that when I play live, when I'm working in the studio, it's just a time where something happens that doesn't happen in the rest of my life.
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand it. I don't want to understand it. It's like my relationship working with Nick. I don't understand why it works, but I don't want to, because I think the understanding will make it stop, is what I believe. So right. I don't want to look at I don't know what I do live. I just know that when I get up, when I'm on stage, something happens that I hope never changes. And for 30 years, I've dipped into that well. I get out there with Dirty Three or the Bad Seeds or with Nick, with an orchestra, and something else happens. And I've always been too sort of superstition to question what I don't want to be aware of it, right. And I didn't want to write about that because it didn't seem to be relevant in this,
Right. I mean, is it even something that could be understood? Did Nina Simone know, what it was about her that created that? I think it's kind of like,
Nina Simone, you have to remember, we're all here. She's here. Nina Simone is one of the greats. She's, Nina Simone was a genius. She was touched by God. She was touched by something. You see her, and you listen to her. John Coltrane was the same. There's some people who, but they're there. The rest of us are all just wading around in the kind of either in the mud or we're paddling through.
I presume there's maybe a few people that might feel this way. But you're a humble man as well. But,
my whole creative life is a mystery to me and a surprise to me that 30 years later, I'm still doing it. But I'm always in deference to the process. I didn't, I'm still trying to work out what I do within it. You know, I still don't understand music. It's still a mystery to me. The day it's not, I don't think I deserve to be doing it. It feels like at that point, then you just become nonchalant about it.
Mm-hmm.
I want to be scared when I go in the studio. I want to be nervous when I go on stage. I have to remain deferential to the whole process. Otherwise, I don't deserve to be there.
I watched, I hadn't seen it in a while, but I watched One More Time with Feeling last night. And there's this moment where Nick's saying, he's like, Warren and the director talk a lot about these things called accidents. And it's just another way of saying communing with God. There's this moment, and it's funny because you talk a lot actually about in your book about coincidences and accidents and things that stumble upon that create it, you know, and you kind of are just you're following it and things just kind of happen. But I feel like there was this other point in the book where you were saying that fear for you in the studio, and it's like more of a helpful force, and in writing you found it not to be helpful.
Yeah, it's that thing that I'm talking about, where if it's the unknown, it's worth investigating. If it sort of worries you, if you're like, I don't really get this doesn't sound like something that we've done, that's worth investigating. And it's much bolder to move towards that than an idea that you feel comfortable with. It feels to me for a while now that I really believe that the ideas are there. They're just out there. And you know, the process of working with Nick and for the last 15 years has been really about sitting in there, coming in with some stuff, but then it's almost like this meditative state where you get in there and you just find yourself making the most nonsensical stuff, but out of that moment, something will just appear suddenly, and you have to be able to recognize it. And it feels like we are ideas, people are ideas, and we need other people to bring out our better selves. We interact with them. We've got we are ideas, and we're waiting to happen and waiting to evolve and take flight. And it feels like the ideas are there. You just have to kind of have your antenna tuned to them when they come along. You can make a bunch of, most of us aren't really dealing with technique and things like that. You know, we have a few basic skills, and we're trying to work out a way to move with them and find something that feels new to us. So, you know, you can go in there just with a couple of chords and an idea that, and you know how it's going to land. But to actually like go in there and let the process actually lead you to something else rather than you trying to kind of, direct it, feels there's more potential for something to happen.
Right.
My whole reason for doing stuff is that I have to feel like the next thing I'm going to do is going to be good. Like, and my hope is one day I will do something, but until then, when we did Ghostine, I thought our collaborative process might stop. I got really spooked by it because I just couldn't have ever imagined making a record like that, being involved. And I was relieved when we did a score after that, but then we made Carnage, I guess I can just spook myself about these things.
Mm-hmm. Did you, thinking about like the writing process, I mean, it seemed like this whole thing of, the point of finding the gun, but also then showing it through this, I think there feels like this catharsis at the end of just writing the book and seeing it through. Like, how was that? How do you feel now towards the object of the gun? And like, how was it?
Well, just in the writing of it, I mean, it was I had a lot of anxiety about it because I was jumping in this world that I really don't know anything about at all. And I don't get music, but I've somehow managed to sort of work within it, being curious about it. But writing was a whole different thing. And the book is me attempting to find my place, I think, the writing process. And you know, I ask people, I talk to people. By the end of the book, it sort of goes from being this, at the start, being this sort of fragmented memories, and then, you know, following Nina Simone's, you know, what happened around the concert. I spoke to our sound guy, and I had these images, and then taking the gum to London and da 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 da. But then by the end of the book, I sort of, I mean, it's not chronological, you know, it jumps all over the place because I wasn't interested in it being chronological. You know, Nick starts the book, I jump back 40 years to a memory, then it jumps forward to Nick and me talking about the exhibition, and then I jump back another sort of 40 years, and it keeps moving all over the place until it gets into a sort of journal form at the end. And at that point, I'm talking about the sort of struggle of writing it, and, you know, that sort of idea that you've kind of read something that feels like someone knows what they're doing, but then you realize actually they don't,
Right.
which is very much how I feel in the creative process. I don't know what, I can't tell half the time. So, you know, the book writing was something I think that luckily I had, like, the people at Faber were fantastic. Dan, Alexa, they were really encouraging, critical. You know, I handed in my first draft, and it was this Frankensteinian attempt, you know, but it was in that thing where I saw ideas of things that I could do. I realized that I needed to have the voices of different people, because different people were who had shown me things, you know. So I would have, you know, text correspondence and emails and things like that. And I'd ask Hannah what she thought about it when she went in. And I called Matt, who mixed the concert. I spoke to David Sefton, who arranged the concert and kind of, you know, dealt with Nina Simone and her entourage. I kind of, you know, I needed people who'd witnessed it to sort of help tell the story and help me find my way. So there's different characters coming in and out of it. But, you know, I realized when I was writing it that if I'd been given, like, the wrong kind of feedback, it could have killed my desire to write really quickly. Because, you know, I did feel really vulnerable. I was like, fuck, people might actually read this, you know, and if I finish it. And then when I'd got through the process, for me, and, you know, like, Faber weren't like just kind of saying, yeah, giving me a pass because, you know, for whatever reason, like, I had to kind of meet their criteria for writing it. That felt like a sort of an achievement for me, you know, to get through to that process. So anything that happened after that just felt like a kind of bonus on top of that, you know.
Right. That was
But you know, I want to say, you know, like, when I mean, did you want me to read that section?
I think it was nice to, the idea of you going through the list. I think read that section and go through the list, because I think the way you speak about the individual objects, like, says a lot about just
Yeah,
about
I mean,
the
I'll just, you know, I'll read this section that you were talking about. This is a section when I've just taken the gum off the piano, and I'm heading back to my hotel room. So this is chapter 13. This Nina Simone's Gum by me. Warren Ellis, the musician, not the comic drawer. I went back to my hotel after the concert of Nina Simone, I guess, and placed the Tower Records bag with the towel and gum inside in my Samsonite briefcase. I would take it on tour with me. From the moment I took the gum, I never touched it or tried to move it from the towel. I'll just get rid of my gum. I looked at it maybe once or twice in the hotel room. I didn't show it to anyone or mention it in conversation. I figured the fewer people who knew about it, the better. And I also didn't think anyone would be interested, to be honest. I'll just show you a couple of pictures here. This is the towel here, and this is the bag. this is my briefcase here. Just to give you a thing. In those days, I always carried a briefcase with me. After the 90s, it became a computer bag. It started when I first began touring, when my world became mobile. I was rootless, and this was a way for me to contain an environment, a portable shrine. There's a particular model of Samsonite from the 80s that I like, the executive model, dark brown, espresso with a chrome handle, rounded edges, not the square variety, slim, made before laptop inclusive was a selling point. I saw one in a movie and it spoke to me of this other world, an exciting world. I remember owning several of these briefcases. They were like little personal museums that I could carry around with me. Everything precious went in them. They are scattered around the house because I would need to retire them. I'd get stopped in customs. Sniffer dogs generally put them to bed. I remember customs in Australia taking offence to a piece of bread I had in the shape of a heart, the size of a baby's thumb, that my wife gave me, and I was detained for hours because I hadn't declared I had food items. After measuring it with a ruler, they decided it was illegal to bring into the country as it was 5 millimetres larger than the maximum size permissible. It was placed in a large plastic bag and confiscated. I was fined for illegal substances and a false declaration. I paid the fine and left. What they were looking for was under my watch strap. I found the briefcase in a hallway cupboard 20 years later, 6th of February 2020, unchanged. I opened it. It resembled the bottom of a handbag. There's my briefcase with its contents there. There's a photo of Mozart playing a violin that my friend Noah Taylor had taken when he was working on a film, Shine, about an Australian pianist, David Helfgott, in 1995. It's a sculpture in Vienna of Mozart wielding the violin around unceremoniously. Noah gave me this photo and said, "Man, he's ripping you off." I found a photo of me performing at Meredith Music Festival in 2004, the night of the great storm that threatened to wash the whole thing down a valley. Noah had a point. This is the photo of Mozart. This is me here. You can see Mozart's he's definitely ripping me off with the violin there.
Yeah, I can see that.
You know, it's interesting because I kept seeing these things that were like solid and things that were moving that became solid, the gum, the thing. There's things I talk about in the book, like I have my hands cast and things like that. There was something about things becoming solid that were fluid once. Anyway, that was something. Noah had a point. As the lightning cracked above the stage and the black clouds rolled up the valley, I turned to the promoter, Matt High, and I asked gingerly, "What do you advise?" "Mate, the anvil has arrived. Play until the power is cut." He had a point. I emptied the briefcase on the floor. Inside it was photo booth images of people I couldn't remember, people I could, a brooch in the shape of bagpipes that my grandmother used to wear on a kilt or something, a cross that I'd purchased in Milan in 1988, given to my mother, then she gave it back to me in 1996, a heart-shaped stone that had been given to me by my future wife, Delphine, an empty notepad, a rusty pocket knife with an amber keyring I bought in Athens, a photo of Andy Gibbs someone had given me, a 64 kb Sharp ZQ3250 electronic organizer, an unfiled tax form from 1997, a fax number for Nick in a hotel in Morocco, an unsigned mute song publishing contract from Andrew King, a photo of a friend's baby, a silver pendant, a broken silver chain, a gold diamante encrusted broken violin brooch, a silver frog from a violin bow with intricate designs carved in it, cassettes from Mick Geyer labelled Flutes and All, an Iowa Walkman cassette player, membership card from Motel 6, a letter from Jonathan Richman telling me how to mic up the band for the next recording based on the Who concert that he saw in 1969 with the drawing of the band and microphones, a poem from Jonathan Richman about Dirty Three, a green ballpoint pen from a hospital in Munich, some plastic sachets of Atiki honey, a very dry piece of lemon, a running list for Horse Stories album, admittance form to a hospital in Munich dated 1996, sachets of Nescafe instant coffee, a red Japanese address book, an onamori from a temple outside Yokohama, a book I've never read, an eraser, a mostly empty 8 fluid ounce bottle of Glockengas number 4711 ice cologne, a 2B Staedtler pencil, bits of paper that were worn white, a theosophical edition of Notes on the Bhagavad Gita, a message from a fortune cookie, a plastic Japanese rabbit pounding mochi with a pencil on red thread with a bell attached, a spoon from an American diner, a postcard from Dave McComb, 7 gold dental crowns and inlays with 2 teeth in a redhead's matchbox. I remember being in a car in Los Angeles with Nick driving to a meeting with Guillermo del Toro in the early 2000s concerning a score for a potential stop-motion adaptation of Pinocchio, drawn by Grizz Grimley. As we pulled up, Guillermo, who I'd never met, was walking down the path towards the car, his smile visible from 100 yards. He opened the door and clocked my briefcase. His already glowing face softened more, and his eyebrows rose above his glasses. I love those briefcases. I had one in the 80s when I was a student. I had one when I met my wife. Can I carry it inside? Of course you can, I replied, handing it to him. We followed Guillermo into his house, I guess it was, or his production office, and sat around a large table. The interior of the house was like a museum of every kind of monster and curiosity imaginable. Skeletons, ghouls, mermaids, props from films, pages from books. I opened my briefcase to grab a pad and I saw the gold crowns and teeth rattling around, freed from their matchbox. I had an idea. I threw the idea out there that we could make the percussive aspect of the score using teeth and prosthetic limbs, glass eyeballs, wooden legs, and drop some melodies on top. This was greeted with some enthusiasm. We discussed the script and the project. After the meeting, Guillermo turned to me and said, "Can I carry your briefcase to the car?" I watched his hand take the handle and his face broaden and composure shift. He carried the case to the car and handed it to me and waved goodbye. The film never happened. Our connection to things, the stories they remind us of, and the past places and times they make us land in. Time travel, connection, shared stories. I have several of these strange time capsules hidden around the house. They make me think of the wonderful Museum of Innocence in Istanbul, founded by Orhan Pamuk, but without a story yet shared. Things that make anywhere feel like somewhere. Nina Simone's chewing gum spent 2 years in that briefcase and traveled everywhere with me when I toured. Amazingly, it was never subject to security checks and sniffer dogs. When I moved to a new house in 2001, I realized it was way too precious to carry around in a briefcase. I was sure I would lose it. After September 11, I was subject to more frequent bomb checks at airport security and figured the gum would be collateral damage. There was a time when a beard was political. There was no way that was going to happen.
That was beautiful to hear from your voice, man. It's, you talk about, and maybe another moment that, you know, you've been on a life on the road, right? I mean, you really have been a transient person for a lot of your life, and these briefcases have acted as like these altars that you travel around on or something. I mean, I guess, what is the relationship to, like, you obviously care a lot about objects, and
I guess so. I guess that those things that, like I said, they made anywhere feel like somewhere. You know, it felt like it felt like when you move around a lot, you just have a few things. My violin was one thing that was always with me, and the violin that turned up. You know, I'd taken it busking in Europe. I'd kind of gone through moments of, personal sort of crises with this instrument. I didn't even like the thing. You know, I never liked playing the violin at all until, I was in my kind of mid-20s and I put a pickup on it and really started playing with Dirty Three. That was when I kind of, I started to like the instrument. Up until then, it was just something that I did. And I just had this bloody thing all the time. And I didn't know, but, I was creating this relationship. And the day that actually playing music helped me sort through something, I realized that, it was this, I guess it's like, films do this and books, literature does this, like that help us make sense of some things, or sometimes it feels like they come to our rescue, and a trip to the exhibition, an exhibition somewhere, it can just feel like it helps establish order or get us in the right place or something. And the violin kind of became like that for me in my 20s. Like, and I realized that time stopped when I played it. I could just sit there and go somewhere with it, you know, that when I couldn't stop the chatter, then things were really not going right in my life, you know. But usually whatever was going on, you know, and I would have periods where, you know, I'd depressed or I'd have a breakdown of sorts or something, but I could pick up my violin and just kind of go somewhere with it. And I just, it had never dawned on me really until I sat down to write this.
Did you feel like from a young age you did care about things and objects and like the way people kind of are sentimental?
Well, I guess I realized I had boxes under my bed and things, and I could remember them when I thought about this. You know, like I had these, you know, little places I would put stuff, things that absolutely nothing, you know, like but meant something to me. Like I said, they you know, they had a memory within them and gave me a bearings or something, you know. I mean, you know, in the book, you know, I talk about these things that I do. I realize I'm probably OCD, you know, like.
I was wondering if your house is just covered, like, do you just have things all over everywhere, or is this like, are you very careful?
I guess, but you know, I'm an addict as well, you know, and I sort of turned that around at the end of the 90s, but it's a sort of, you know, it's something that it gives you an ability to sort of focus and hone in on things. And I realized when I reread this when I was sort of launching it, that I'm also talking about the positive aspects of that too. I think that you can transfer that kind of obsessive behavior towards something that can be a really powerful thing. It's not like a negative character, you know, like, you know, I think there was that real trend of just prescribing kids drugs, you know, for being, you know, obsessive or being, you know, like, you know, full of beans and stuff like that, you know, and would rather people were kind of much more like easier to control. But you know, I just kind of feel like,
it's like finding trying to find a remedy rather than, you know, a space for that to go. It seems like you've been able to, and a lot of people have trouble like being able to figure out how do you filter this, but society doesn't. They just want you to conform to behave.
Yeah. I mean, you know, for me, you know, like I said, I didn't realize, but music was something really spiritual, and I'd been looking for that, and there was something about it, but it also gave me this thread that I could hang things off, you know, in my life, you know, because, you know, I have problems relating to lots of the reality of the world, and you know, just disappearing into music has definitely been, I think, a way for me to just sort of navigate stuff.
Do you like currently, as far as the briefcase and that, do you still do this, or do you still have a briefcase now that you travel with you?
No, well, I don't have a brief. I mean, I do that though, you know, like I do have things that I have trouble jettisoning. I you know, it's funny because, you know, I can say this, like, you know, in all seriousness, like, I mean, when I sort of put the gum out there, it was a real relief to realize that it was in the world. And, you know, since the book's come out, I've had the South Bank call up and want to acquire the gum and put it in their archives, you know. And the towel and the bag, you know, which is could be a great relief to me, because again, you know, they could just end up in the bin, and it deserves better than that, you know.
Oh, so they want the Tower Records bag and the towel.
Yeah, they want everything: the Tower record towel and the gum. And the gum at the moment is in a safe in the Royal Danish Library. I saw Christina the other day after the Royal Albert Hall, and the exhibition is closed down. but they have it in a special box that they constructed to keep it at the right temperature so that it doesn't change and that the color doesn't change and all this. Like, they've researched it. And for her, she said to me, she's absolutely terrified about it, about what, and she's like, I want it, I want it out, and I'm like, look, I want you to have it, I want you to kind of people to see it.
Right.
So, the South Bank have archives, and they would love to acquire it. I
feel like
one of these ingots here, these I gave to Faber for their the way that they've sort of worked with the book and the encouragement and all that. And they said that they were so sort of honored to have it, and they said it's going in the vaults with the manuscript of Sylvia Plath and Ted Hughes. It's going in archives, this piece of this copy of the gum, which is so beautiful. I mentioned this in the book. It's like the sort of last breath of Thomas Edison, which is just the most beautiful image, that Henry Ford called up Edison's son as he was dying and said, look, can you catch his last breath for me? So his son put these test tubes by the bed, and as Thomas Edison died, he sealed them up, and there's now a test tube of Edison's last breath.
So beautiful.
Yeah.
When you said, did you know about that? Because I was thinking about that story. It's such a perfect symbol for this whole process anyway, because it's really, is it about the object at all, or is it just about the idea? And that's like the ultimate, it's a breath.
Like I said at the start, the beautiful thing is that it's nothing and it's everything. Like the thing around it, that everybody that gets involved with this, that they want to carry, this is in the imagination. And it's such an extraordinary thing, the fact that, I could have flipped any bit of chewing gum in there or what. It's not, it's her chewing gum. And the thing is that it's this belief in it, this that I find, and it was something that was very hard from writing, because it's written very simply, like anyone who read it will attest to that. Like I wrote it in a really simple way, because anytime I tried to kind of get too complex or try to get, it just didn't land right. It felt like I was trying too hard, and I was writing about something that's abstract and something that can get pretentious really quickly, and I don't have the language to kind of to communicate that. But it seemed like what I didn't say was important, that allowed people to read their story into it and read what they want into it without using certain words. I mean, a big part of the editing process was pulling out whole sections and stuff where I was like, I'm not reaching far enough with this. People aren't going to get it. And when I finished the actual draft, and I was with Dan Paps, and I had about 40 quotations of people, from Anais Nin to Pasolini to my shoemaker, a taxi driver that I'd met, a friend who said something, Beethoven. I had all these quotes because I didn't feel confident that my words were getting things across. And I thought, okay, if they don't get it, they're going to get this, So, and everybody was fine with it until the last day. And then Dan said to me, look, you have to get permission for all these quotations. And I was like, you're joking. And he's like, no, we have to find out if this is really like the right translation of Beethoven's letter. And I was just like, fuck, you're joking. Like, really, like we were clearing photos, which was hard to do this, and it had taken a long time in some respects. And then he said to me, look, I have an idea. You pick one that you like, and we're going to deliver the rest. And we were literally ready to hit send. And I went, okay. And he goes, which one is it? And I said, well, it's Lou Reed. It's the 3 lines from Junior Dad. Would you come to me if I was half drowning, an arm above the last wave? Which seemed to me what the book was about, this petition. Me summoning up things, this petition or a plea for help. And I put that in there, hit delete, and he gave me the manuscript and I went and read it. And that was the first time I saw my book. And I remember his words, he said, "It's time to take the training wheels off, Warren." And he just hit delete. And then, it was this, I guess it was this thing that I used to give structure. And in many ways, it's what the book is about. The molding of the gum is a metaphor for all that, the structures and that we use to create something. Then we take off, and then we're left with we have the idea, we build a framework around it, and then we kind of take the scaffolding off, we take the mold off, we take whatever off, and then we're left with what's going to be there. And that, this serendipity that came through the writing of it, this thing, I couldn't help but see this sort of symbolism in that. The day that I got that, I went and I was cleaning out a cupboard, and I found an old suitcase, a Samsonite one too, like fake crocodile skin, and it was from the 90s. And I opened it, and it surprised me because it was really small. So I guess I don't think I had many clothes or anything, But inside this was like letters from Mick Dyer, who features in my book. He's a guy that taught me a lot of stuff, a really dear friend. He was at the concert, but he introduced me to a lot of Nina Simone, a lot of great music. He was like this great guide, and someone really important for someone like me. Letters from him, he died like in the early 2000s. There was letters from Dave McComb, who he's also in the book because I carried a postcard of his around, and that basically kept me sober for 20 years. Just having this postcard of his, knowing that I had this, that was my way of thinking about the whole thing of where my addictions could lead me. Was looking at that, what I put into that little thing was that it's such a big thing. I found all these postcards from him. I found the original ticket to the Nina Simone concert with my name on it.
Wow.
And I found a script from Oren Moverman, the first script he gave me when I met him in New York in 1996. And for me, whatever, I couldn't help but think all these people were saying to me, "Kid, let it go." Like the serendipity, and it's just continued, on after, I'm writing an afterword for it now, and the things that have happened since it became, a thing in people's imagination. It's really amazing, people have latched onto it, and it just continues to evolve. And like I said, I'm going to build a big one and take it to Sumatra on a boat with a pith hat and a safari suit. And
I can't wait to see that, man.
Let the armless monkeys and toothless bears kind of play on it.
Absolutely. That's so that project in Sumatra you're doing. It's a foundation that's set up.
It came out of last year with everything that was going on. I was really moved by the sort of sense of community that sort of seemed to come back into our lives, and just people checking in on you and people wanting to help out people. And I realized that I could weather it, and I was in a privileged position, and so many people I knew weren't and were suffering. And, I was giving things, and we were raising money for our crew. And I noticed, people just doing what they could. And then at the start of the year, I did music for a documentary on snow leopards, which is coming out in December. It's this beautiful, beautiful documentary about Vincent Munier and Sylvain Tesson, who go to try and take a photo of a snow leopard. And it's just the most incredible documentary. And I was working on that, and a friend of mine contacted me about putting my face on a beard balm project that has no palm oil in it. Anyway, I did that, and then I got into discussions, and I was like, I really want to try and do something a bit more substantial. And I met this woman, Femke Den Haas, and she said there was a real need for to build a park, a sanctuary for animals that they can't release back into nature, animals that are just so abused. She needed a place that they could just die happily. And so I kind of checked into a few things, and I said to her, look, I think I can get the land for you, I'll donate it to you. So I did that. I did that, and then realized that we had to actually build the thing, and we needed money and stuff like that. So I wanted it to just, I didn't want to sort of announce it and stuff like that. And then I thought, okay, well, maybe I need to do something like that. And so we announced it, and we've been funded within 2 months, to build it. It's expanding, we'll have about 20,000 square meters soon. And, we're aiming to build a place where the old elephants can go and die. That's the next thing.
Amazing, man.
Yeah, we have bears with no teeth.
Wow.
She from the sort of so people can have photos taken with them, and we have monkeys, a monkey with no arms. We have monkeys that have been beaten up and they have brain damage, and we have birds with 1 foot, and we have it's kind of like, like I was saying, I was for all the broken things. And
right.
What's beautiful about it is it's a thing about hope, and it's like people deciding that they want to try and correct the wrong that others have done, wrongs that they're not accountable for. But I really love the idea of that. And I mean, since I've done it, it's changed my life, it really has. I can't imagine my life without it. But it's enabling these people who, Femke is just so extraordinary. She has a volunteer of 50 people volunteering to help. I mean, you can see it's ellispark.org, and we're building the thing in real time. So on Instagram, people can watch it. Ellis Park Sumatra, ELLIS.
That looks amazing, man. No, that's
good
work, man.
But again, it's what my book is about that ideas get out there, and this idea of the park was put out there, and people got underneath it, and have allowed it to take flight. So this idea of communal ideas and communal imagination feels really important.
Absolutely, man. That's really inspiring, Warren. That's so you have this whole thing that you go back to about kind of a physical object making something metaphysical real, and these things that you've created, not just objects but your music, which is ephemeral but has created endless interactions and communities. And now the idea is going into this whole other world of this foundation, and then it's just you're vast, brother. And it's such a beautiful journey to go through the book. It was funny, I don't ever mark books. I'm just weird about marking books. And I was reading this, and I was going through the highlighter and marking it, and I was imagining myself with this book in 20 years saying, it became an important object while I was reading it, and it's just this kind of cycle of things.
That's lovely to hear that. It was lovely, great how Faber kind of wanted to present it in such a way too. It feels, like a beautiful object. It's got,
Absolutely.
There's
it becomes this object about the object, which is, and it's just, I still go back to too, the idea that it's a piece of gum. It's kind of funny because even the last breath of Edison. But this is it's almost there's something strange and almost perverse about gum, the gum of someone's mouth, and the idea of how that's come along. It's just been really fun to go through with you. But I think that there's we're pretty good on time. I'm gonna just see if there's any good questions that come up, because I want to kind of open it up to that. And then I know you talked about the snow leopard document, but anything else that's coming up in your life that people should know? I know you're just ending a tour, and you're doing a whole lot.
Ending tour. No, I mean, yeah, that's coming out, and I don't know. There's, I think if it all kickstarts, we have festivals next year and things like that. I have a new Dirty 3 record, but we haven't been able to sign off on it. So there's that.
How long has that been since you had a Dirty 3?
Well, it's been a while, but we actually did it a year or two ago, before the pandemic happened. But it's just, things take time in Dirty 3 sometimes.
Yeah, no. But, I was just a Dirty 3 fan before I found Nick Cave somehow. But I mean, I'm very big heart for the Dirty 3, so I'm excited, man.
Well, yeah, threatening to come out. We just will come out at some point, and you know, I'm just, you know, I have scores I'm working on and stuff like that. But just getting this, you know, as with everything, you know, we're all a bit uncertain. You can make plans, but you don't know what is going to happen. So the fact that this tour happened in Europe and the UK was a little miracle, you know.
It seems like a miracle. This one, it's incredible.
Yeah, that it happened, and you know, so we have plans for next year, and we just have to see how that unfolds, you know.
Right.
Like for everybody, you know, you
just can't count on anything right now.
No, but you have to take the window of opportunity when it comes along, and I think that you know, that people have found a way to work within the sort of the time and stuff like that is really a wonderful thing.
Yeah. No, it's funny because the first question that came in was would Dirty Three ever put out another record and tour soon? So you answered that one.
Yeah.
Then it said will you and Nick Cave come to Seattle anytime soon? So I don't think that's planned yet.
We just have to see, you know, what's going to happen with all that stuff.
And then
yeah.
And then another one, Ocean. Any chance of vinyl reissues like the Ocean songs?
Yeah, we put out a beautiful live recording of that, and that came out for Record Store Day. But I want to get that released because it's my favorite actual recording of the band. It's with Nick playing it in ATP at All Tomorrow's Parties, and it's the only record that actually captures what I hear on stage. So we'll try and get that out. But the new one's really good, I think. It's the most Dirty Three record ever.
Man, the dirtiest of the dirty threes.
Yeah, it is.
I'm ready for this. Can't wait for you to come to New York City. This is from Holland. Do you feel more inspired and creative now compared to when you were younger? What's the process in terms of how you look at that?
Yeah, I do. I mean, my work rate is a sort of like urgency to create with me now. Like I have never made so much stuff in all my life, and I've always been scared that it will stop. I always go in the studio thinking, is this the day that it all stops? I've always been like that. But when I was younger, something about it seemed easier because you didn't have a history with it. So you do something and then go on to a tour, and you know, I'd make a record every year or every other year. And then when I started working with Nick, I was doing more, and then we got into film doing scores in the early 2000s. And then my productivity just like went out of control, you know. And, you know, I also think it was meeting Nick that there was something about that sort of meeting that kind of was so fertile, and he was so encouraging, and there's something about that engaged something else, you know, in me. Like, and you know, I remember also going into the sort of Bad Seeds the first time was so extraordinary for me to see these people who, you know, I just thought were the most extraordinary sort of people on the planet. To actually see them doing something was such a window on a privileged window, you know, to look at something like that I never dreamed of.
Right.
But yeah, I these days, I don't know, at the moment I just seem to want to keep making all the time. Like I just want to sit and create things, you know, until I don't even know what the inspiration is, but I just, while I can, I just want to keep doing stuff.
And there seems to be it's not like you're, you know, you don't, I mean, this is your first book, so you haven't had writer's block yet, I imagine, but.
Well, I had that actually. I had a very blank page for a long time.
You wrote about that in terms of, like you could, this is a totally new.
I had writer's
it's
block.
Not comfortable space.
I sort of picked up the kind of pencil, you know, I was just like, what do you do?
Right. Absolutely.
No, I mean, I don't know I don't know if I would write. I never thought I'd write a book. Writing and music for me were the noble pursuits when, in the 80s, when I was sitting around in, you know, shared houses and, doing drugs and watching music and all that stuff. Like, we all looked up to writing musicians. It was the noble profession.
Right.
Never ever dreamed that I would be doing that one day. The last sort of 30 years has seemed like some little miracle to me, that I get another year out of it.
Mhm.
I wasn't somebody who was fully formed, knew what I wanted to do. Like, I just had no idea. I was always a music listener. I loved cinema. I loved reading. But I just never thought, I never thought that I would actually be engaged in it.
At the start of the book, there was this piece where when you're really young, where I guess you played a bit, but I think you say it kind of like you were going to be like a cook or something, and somebody in your life, maybe a teacher, was kind of like,
yeah,
don't be an idiot, Warren. You know what I'm saying? Like, don't be stupid. And then you took
that's actually why, when I dedicated the book to teachers, because I realized that it's people who pointed out things to me that's changed the path of my life. And it's always been affirmative things, that I didn't realize myself. And those people have been really important to me, whoever they are. Someone can say something to you and change the way that you look at something or the way you feel about yourself.
Mm-hmm.
It's what that was really sort of apparent to me, that I was writing about people who'd help, like I said, this thing of us being ideas helped me sort of find better aspects of myself. I guess you hear of some people, they just know what they want to do when they're this age. I want to be an actor. They want to be a musician. They want to be a doc, whatever. I wasn't that sort of person.
Mm-hmm.
It's taken other people to point out things in me. I realized I always had this sort of like this thing with music, but like it was more what I was receiving from it. I was on the other end of it. But yeah, I mean, I think from my point of view with the book, I think the best thing would be if some kid can read it and just think, fuck, I can do that. Like, I think that's
I think it does that, man. And that's what I was trying to say. Like, not, I think that obviously Nina Simone is in a class of her own, just like many of those titans are. But you do you're a teacher, Warren. I mean, I think that you're people admire you. You're someone to admire, and people see that. And I think that through the book, you see how much you admire people, but you can admire the writer at the same time, which is you. And it's this beautiful. I think it has this type of hopefulness for me completely. So I really felt like that shined through a whole lot, but yeah, congratulations, man. I mean, it's been a big year
for having me.
It's been a big plague, a big pandemic, and the fact you came out of this process and got a lot. Yeah, it felt very cathartic, and like just seeing kind of also your relief that the gum, I think, is safe now, and that actually it never felt like the gum was yours. It felt like almost like you were haunted a bit.
Yeah, well, it's funny because I haven't worried about it since, and like it feels like now it's out there, it'll be taken care of. Like I think like my time is done with it. Like it's why I wanted to make a sculpture, and why I'm not selling the copies of it that I did. Like I just wanted them to be given to people who've really helped me in a lot of ways. And I've never, I didn't want to do something like that, but I wanted, it was where the idea of building a sculpture came from, so that people could go and see it if they wanted to. Yeah. But if it, if it can end up in a place where people can go and see it, the real bit of gum, that would be fantastic, so.
Absolutely.
I don't know where it will be, but we'll find somewhere.
Let's bring like a 50-foot gum to New York City. Maybe I'm there to help. Let's figure it out.
All right, look, get your people onto it. Like, as I know those things take time. And
Yeah, no, hey, brother.
we better get onto it
I have
now.
many missions in life, so this would be one of my.
They roll me into a bloody hole in Sumatra and stick a coconut plant on me.
That would be
peeling monkeys peeling bananas for the monkeys.
Absolutely, brother.
That's my retirement plan.
Well, I know it's late there. I know this is your magic hour. You're probably up for another couple hours reading and playing music, but
yeah, I've got a concert tomorrow.
This was fun as hell, man. It's so good to see you. It's really an honor, honestly. And this book has been just a journey. And it's kind of like you need certain things in life sometimes, and they come to you. I feel like this has been really like perfect, just time for me personally to read this.
I'm glad it's landed. I mean, it's interesting, for me, because music, I've been putting it out for a while, and you see how people react at concerts and stuff like that. But talking about the music always seems so counterproductive. Like people, when they ask you questions in interviews, and I haven't found that with this. I found this to be really enjoyable doing these chats and stuff about this, because I learned things about it. And also, people talk about how it's read them, and they have their own, people might say, fuck, I collect washers, like I was someone said, oh, I've been doing this, like,
right.
It's been really interesting for me, this, because I just have given up talking about music, because I just don't even know what to say about it myself. And I think it undermines actually what people might think it's about, because it's generally way more interesting than what you anticipated anyway, or the truth. Don't let the truth get in the way of a good story.
Absolutely.
Mind you, I'll have you know that everything in the book is true. Nothing has been sort of written to help the narrative, in any way. It's all the truth as far as I'm aware and concerned.
No, I think it seems like your life has been enough of an adventure to not really have to embellish too much. It's quite a journey you've had, brother. And thank you for you gave us a little piece of your story, and that means a lot. I think it will mean a lot to a lot of people, and it does. So I appreciate you, brother.
Yeah, I mean, I also, I think there's also people who can read it, not know anybody in there or anything about it, but the fact that this some whack guy kept a bit of chewing gum for 20 years is sort of like interesting to them, I think it operates on a few different levels as well, whether you know or you don't know the people, involved.
Was it just like the last little thing, was it ever a different title? Because I heard the title first.
That was the working title, and then there was a couple of suggestions, and it just never landed right. And it was the title when Faber offered me a contract. They just wrote down, okay, this is a book about Nina Simone's gum, and then I could never find anything else.
It's absolutely perfect, man.
The only thing, some people said maybe it should be chewing gum, because there was that, and it just didn't look as good.
No, I think Nina Simone's gum. I didn't think of like her actual gum ever.
No, but I think some people.
I think that it comes off, man. Hey, brother, have a really beautiful night out there.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Hope to get to meet you in New York someday, and rest up after the tour. Take care of yourself.
Break bread one day.
Yeah, beautiful.
Say hello to Michael. All right.
Yeah.
All right, man.
Thanks everyone for joining, and see you all.